This is Jack Molman, and it's Tuesday, the 23rd of September 2014. And with us is John Ledwin, who was with us back in 2011 when I first started making these recordings, these interviews. And he's a concert organist on the board of directors of ATOS, has a lot of things that he's done in his life with music, and we'll defer to the first video for those of you who want to find out all about that. So welcome, John.
I thank you for the opportunity to be here, Jack.
And I think I said we're here in my house in O'Fallon, Illinois. We were at an ATOS a retreat this weekend, and we'll get to that in a minute. But John, in your activities with ATOS, you have been working with the Young Theater Organist Competition for a few years. And why don't you tell us a little bit about it, how it's been going, and what accomplishments the program has had?
Well, thank you, Jack. I started with the program in 2012. It had a couple of years of no activity due to lack of contestants, but we jump-started it in 2012 and did it at the Los Angeles convention, ATOS convention. We made the initial event not a competition, but rather a showcase, because I had been told that a number of the young artists didn't want to compete with each other. This proved to be incorrect, and we did institute the competition back again in 2013 and 2014. In 2012, we had one of the finalists came all the way from Great Britain, and by the way, we do pay their airfare, their hotel, and their banquet fees for the convention, and their convention registration also for the entire convention. We do also, if they're under 18, they must have a chaperone with them. Usually it's a parent, but it could be anybody that the parent designates. So then, as I say, in 2012 we had the LA convention. We had the competition on the very first day, so the young artists were able to bask, shall we say, in the limelight all through the convention as conventioneers went up to them and said how much they enjoyed what they did. It was a nice positioning. In Atlanta we didn't have quite the option, but and then we had different situation. We had fewer organs in Atlanta, and it was a little more difficult to do. But what we did there worked out very well. Unfortunately, in the Atlanta convention, I was unable to be at the actual competition because my responsibilities at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood for Disney required that I go back. So Ken Double ran the program for me there. A little bit about the Young Theater Organist Competition, which we basically abbreviate to the YTOC, is that it started way back in the 80s, and basically every young artist we have today under the age of 45 has gone through the program and won the award. So there's been a lot of probably 90, maybe 95% of the artists have actually won the award. It's been a great vehicle to expose young people to the theater organ world. They say the competition was held in 2013, where we had a winner, and again in 2014, this time in Indiana, where again there was a winner. We used to call the winner the overall winner because originally we used to have three categories: junior, intermediate, and senior or advanced. I guess it was senior. I'm not too sure the exact nomenclature of what it was called. It was back before I was involved in it. But now we don't have enough candidates to do that. So basically we had about somewhere between 6 and 7 candidates every year. They go first through a CD elimination where 3 prominent theater organists are given CDs of each candidate, and then they review them. They have no idea who the candidate is. All they know is the size and make of the organ that the young artist is performing on, and then they rate them with a point scale, and then that point scale indicates which ones are going to become the 3 finalists. And as I think I kind of got off track there for a minute, we used to have an overall winner, which was the 3 categories, and now that's been changed to being just a first place winner, because we don't no longer have categories, so there isn't really an overall winner. There is a first place winner. And well, let's see, what else can I say? Well, we had it again, I say, in Indianapolis in 2014. Again, it was successful. The website now contains all of the information for the 2015 competition, which will be held in Wilmington, Delaware. And I think I can't remember where the actual YTOC competition is occurring. It's not occurring at Dickinson High School, where most of the convention will be, but it will be somewhere nearby, and I believe it's on the second day this time.
Well, a lot of people we hope a lot of people watch this. What would be your advice to some aspiring organist out there to enter the competition? There isn't any requirement, is there, to enter this? I mean, they don't have to be skilled, concert ready, and anything like that? Can't they just?
No, I have basically said, if you play the organ and you play it, I mean, obviously not beginning style, but anywhere, intermediate level or thereabouts. If nothing else, you get some good evaluations out of it. If you happen to make the finalist, you get the opportunity to present your artistry to a very, very forgiving and warm-hearted audience that will just basically eat what you do, eat you up alive with gratitude and thanks. The way the young artists are treated at the audience level is incredible. They are given so much respect and so much thanks, I think, for what they do. So it's a chance to, the word I used this last year was savor the moment. Here you are, 15, 16, 17. I think the oldest one we had this year, I guess we had one 20-year-old. We had a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I told them, I said, just savor the moment, enjoy what's going on, and you may never pass this way again, even though hopefully you will, but it could be a thing where so many young people decide after they've been doing things for a while that that's not for them and they go elsewhere. But in this case, you don't have to have any concert-ready talent to do it. Just, as I say, a willingness to improve and whatnot, and you're more than welcome to enter the competition. Again, we take entrants from any part of the world, and we will bring people, like, as I said before, we brought one from the UK, we've brought them from Australia before. It's been expensive, and with our budget cuts it might prove to be somewhat challenging, but on the other hand, we do it.
Now, the competition, Young Organist Competition, YTOC, is a young youth-oriented program, but you're also in charge of youth initiatives on the board of directors. What else you got going?
Well, if you start at the basic bottom end of the thing, we have the Student of the Year. This is where any student that plays, is a theater organ student, may enter that thing, and we take basically the essay from the student and comments from the teacher, and we select the ATOS Student of the Year. We don't always have one every year, but when we do, we sometimes have it. Then coming up from there, you would probably have the scholarship program where ATOS does pay for lessons, or maybe 50% of lessons for a young theater organist for a year. A lot of them now are being done on Skype and other internet methods of doing it, so that you don't have to have a theater organ, well-known theater organ artist near you, but there are some that will do it from a distance. And then you have the Summer Youth Adventure, which is a all-inclusive 8-day immersion into theater organ techniques and practices, taught by 3 or 4 artists in residence, you might sort of say. That one, again, if you're under 18, you must have a chaperone attending it with you. The last 2 years it's been in Portland. I don't know where it's going to be this year, but I don't think it's going to be Portland. That is another stellar program that basically prepares young artists for the YTOC, the Young Artist Competition, and ultimately position as a theater organ artist when they reach a greater age.
And then we have the George Wright Fellowship, don't we?
Yeah, the George Wright Fellowship is a program that brings young people to was originally intended to bring them to the convention. It's been expanded now to include possibly being used to help the YTOC, bring people to the competition, and it has also been mentioned that it might be accessible and available for SYA or Summer Youth Adventure students also.
And then, how about the youth representative to the board? Does that fall in your area?
Yes, it does, and this is a very, very challenging and unique part of ATOS. We do have a youth representative to the board whose position is there primarily to give the elder board members or the main regular board members ideas that might be a more youthful outlook on how things might be done, and to try and encourage young people to be a part of the organization and whatnot. So the youth rep is a 2-year thing. All these things, by the way, run from age, well, the youth rep, I believe, is from 18 to 24. The YTOC and I believe the SYA are all 14 to 24.
And another idea is to probably groom some of these people to be leaders within ATOS, like on the board of directors, maybe a future chairman of the board.
Well, who knows, what happens. Of course, young people have a lot of commitments and a lot of things they need to do, and it takes quite a bit of time. They have to go to the board meetings, they have to go to all the virtual board meetings, they are expected to go to the convention. So it takes a lot of time, and yes, hopefully out of this we will develop some young people that will go on to becoming part of the management level of ATOS.
Now, another hat that you've worn on this thing, on the board of directors, is in the budget area. It got a little painful, but why don't you just tell us a little bit about that?
Well, 2 years ago, Bob Dilworth, the chairman of the board, decided that our budget situation was such and taking so much time out of the board meetings that perhaps there should be a budget committee that would prepare a budget that would then be presented to the board in the hopes that they would take it and run with it. The 2013 budget was basically analyzed line by line, and some advances were made in revenue and certainly in the expense end of it to come up with a approved 2013-2014 budget. We did the same process for this year for the 2014-2015 program. It did pass and was approved by the board, but since then there has been some changing in the situation. At the moment the budget is in limbo, and I assume that within the next couple of months we will make a decision as to what will happen there.
Now, as if you don't have enough to do, you're also in charge of one of the biggest programs that ATOS has, and that's the endowment fund. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about that and how the people that may be watching this can get some help?
Well, I'm at this point of the game, I'm still kind of the new kid on the block when it comes to the endowment fund, and I got to be careful what I say because I'm not too sure just exactly all the ins and outs in it. But basically, this is a program developed. We're now by ATOS back in the 80s to fund chapter activities for restoration of organs and for other special projects that happen to develop that may not be organ preservation related, but something which the trustees of the endowment fund and the board of directors choose to select as important things. We have about $1.2 million in our endowment fund at the current time. We are empowered to spend 90% of the revenue from the endowment fund. 10% of it goes to pay the fees for the what we call it, the management fees for the
trust company that manages
Yeah, right.
the fund.
And then the other 90% is available to chapters. Currently, we have about twice as many requests for funds as we have funds to allocate. Hopefully, we can get some large donations into the endowment fund so that we can fund all the projects that come up. Basically, if you're an ATOS chapter and you are 501c3, in other words, a not-for-profit organization, and you have an organ project, the organ does not have to be owned by the chapter, but the chapter should show that it has good, adequate, again, I'm groping for a word here, access to the instrument for several years into the future, because why should we spend $10,000-15,000 on an instrument that they might lose the access to use in a year or two, especially since the instrument is known by the chapter. Chapter-owned instruments are certainly a great benefit if you want an endowment one, because in the event that there's a problem, the chapter owns the organ, and the money that we have put into it from the ATOS National Endowment Fund will go with the chapter to the new location. So that's a good idea.
Well, let's see, the last thing let's just briefly touch on, and that is what brought you here to the local area, and that's a retreat that we had this weekend, which its intended purpose was to look at how ATOS is operating, how it's managed, its shortcomings, its successes, and we went through a rather rigorous instruction period and meeting, interacting amongst one another, and then having a leader from a professional leader tear us apart. What do you think about it? Was it worthwhile? What do you think is going to come out of it?
I have been to a couple of these, primarily in education, and so I was kind of aware of how they were going to be run. I thought this one was superiorly run. It was very extremely well done. It was pointed. It was to the point. It never got what I would call negative. It got negative, but it was never abusive negativity. It was always constructive in the way everything was presented. Hopefully something good will come out of this. It was expensive. Again, since my ties with the budget, even though I had nothing to do with whether or not we did it or not, obviously we as a group on the board did vote to expend the money. It's an expensive proposition. But then you have to spend money to make money, and in this case, the organization is not exactly what you would call vigorous in growth or in anything. So, in fact, it's declining in a number of areas, especially in membership. And of course, the majority of the trouble with membership is just our aging membership. I would say the average age of membership right this point again is probably somewhere in the either very high 60s or early 70s. Because we do have people that are far older than that attending conventions, and there's no problem with that. But unfortunately, as you get older, if you have an older populace in the organization, you have the chance that there's going to be more people passing and deflating the roles of the membership. So at this point of the game, we are looking to move into a more contemporary, mature type of organization, a nonprofit organization, where a lot of the things that have been done by volunteers will ultimately, and when I say ultimately, it could be years before it happens, are done by paid staff. The idea of doing that is for self-preservation of the organization, as we who are presently doing governance or management get older and can no longer continue doing this. The younger staff, which is paid, can continue the ATOS tradition on well past our ability to do it. And through this manner, if the donations come in strong enough, the organization can last another 20, 50, 100 years by paid staff basically perpetuating the ideas of ATOS.
Well, we 3 years ago, just changing the subject quite a bit here from these interesting ATOS things to what John Ledwin has been doing, and two questions. One is, since the last time, and I asked the question the last time, what was the most exciting organ concert or organ activity that you've done up to that time? Well, we've had 3 years passing. What have you done that's been very exciting that you'd love to do again, that was either a concert or an experience that you'll never forget?
Well, actually, I do my usual 7, 8, 10 concerts a year. And by the way, I do them, I'll put a plug in here, I do them for just expenses. I feel that chapters have enough problems today, and I'm not what I would call of the caliber of some of the incredible artists we have out there today, but I think I could do a relatively effective program. I also market myself as a person who does music from 1950s onward primarily, so as to try and focus on newer music. But if I was going to look at something, probably the only thing I've done in the last couple of years that's been kind of cool in my point of view is I have installed a 3-manual 15-rank Wurlitzer in my home in Henderson, Nevada. It's not quite finished, but it's close and it's playing and whatnot. So this is certainly nowhere near the instrument I had when I lived in the Santa Monica Mountains in Agoura, California, where I had 4 manuals and 52 ranks. But this is this is just something to tinker with and play with and have fun with, and that has taken a lot of time over the last couple of years, along with completely and totally rebuilding the house in the ground, the half acre it's on. So that has been my project for now. Has been basically to working on my residence and the residence organ.
What's your worst experience in this time?
Boy, I don't know. I have to say, I don't like to look at the sunny side of life. I can't think of anything that's worst. I really can't think of anything that I would even call being negative, badly negative. I mean, we all go through things that, this happens or that happens. Let's face it, certain things do happen. But I haven't had anything. I have to live. I've lived a very blessed life in a lot of ways. As I've always said, my cup has always runneth over. Far beyond my ability to thank and repay, whoever, whenever, the good Lord, whatever it is, for what I've been endowed with. But I haven't had any. I've had some frustrations with this darn pipe organ in the house, but nothing that's anything of any great import. I mean, it's nothing major.
Well, anyway, we want to sort of bring this to a close, and we thank you, John, for being John Ledwin, because you certainly get out and around. We're going to let you have the last word. Maybe you can encourage the young people to get involved in your activities. So why don't you just, whatever you want to sum up and tell the world, whatever you would like.
Well, in the Theater Organ Journal, which is the publication of the American Theater Organ Society, I just did what's called a director's corner, which means I put a thing of what I've been doing in my activities. And I started out by saying, do you know a young musician? If you know a young musician who happens to be particularly a keyboard artist, introduce them to the theater organ, or at least help them to direct their interest. There's lots of pictures and lots of videos on YouTube about what a theater organ will do, and see if we can expose more people to this wonderful art form, and truly American art form. There are 2 American instruments, so far as I can tell. One is the theater organ, which is a relatively sophisticated instrument, and the other one is kind of a fun instrument, the banjo. So between the 2 of those, I would pick the theater organ as being the better one. And if you have any young people in your area that go to the church, and your church or synagogue or whatever it is, and they play musical there, or they work as accompanists for a local middle school choir or band or high school or whatnot, pursue showing them what the theater organ is, and maybe we could get some more future talent that will ensure the continued success and future of ATOS.
Well, thank you very much, John, for being with us, and we wish you well. Maybe another 3 years we'll do another one of these.
Sounds good. Thank you,
So
Jack.
Today is the 23rd of September, 2014, O'Fallon, Illinois. Jack Molman here, and we look forward to having you all watch this video as well as the ones to come.